It seemed like Prospect Street was 30 miles long and uphill the whole way. Having to take a dump was terrible enough, but trying to climb a hill while drunk at the same time was pure torment on his anus. David wrapped up his mental prayer with a big amen when Brian interrupted him with a shout. "Fuck you, you sorry asshole!" exclaimed Brian, as his burrito made a sloppy, wet slap against the windshield of a BMW parked alongside the street. David fought back what he hoped was just gas from the sudden, unexpected outburst. "What in the hell are you doing?" David burped in shock and was instantly reminded of his personal predicament. He began to wonder if there were anywhere he could get a change of clothes nearby. "Fuck Bill Tabor and his fancy fucking BMW!" Brian slurred as he staggered towards the vehicle. It was a classic 1960s model BMW in perfect condition, except for the explosion of beef, cheese, and beans splattered all over it. Brian pulled out his Swiss Army knife and began to pry open the cover for the gas tank. "What? How the hell do you know this is Bill's car?" David was puzzled and instinctively looked around for anyone who might care that Brian was now inserting his penis into the filler nozzle of what looked like a very expensive car parked in front of an apartment complex. "We came over here last year for some company Christmas party that Rachel dragged me to. Bill lives up on the 3rd floor, and he just couldn't shut up about this stupid fucking car. Leather seats this, plenty of room in the back seat that, if you know what I mean." Brian emphasized with air quotes as he leaned balls deep into the Beamer. "Man, if I knew then what I know now, I would." Brian trailed off as he relieved himself into the gas tank. It felt so good, his eyes began to cross. David glanced at the license plate that conveniently read, "Billy Boy." David nodded to himself in the assurance that this had to be Bill's car. Before it was too late, David vaguely wanted to stop what was happening, but his secret hatred of Rachel came flooding back into his brain. "Stupid bitch. This is what she gets," he thought. David took the Swiss Army knife from Brian's hand and bit the lock as Brian zipped up, a skill he learned much earlier in life. When he lifted the handle, an alarm started to sound. Brian immediately panicked as he frantically stuffed himself back into his pants. David quickly cut some wires underneath the steering column, and the sound instantly stopped. "Dude, are you fucking insane?" Brian whispered sternly. "Man, nobody pays attention to car alarms, are you kidding me? People are used to them going off all the time. They just ignore them." "What the hell are you doing?" Brian grew more worried as David quickly began to pull his pants down to his knees, turn, pull his long trench coat to the side, and crouched into the floorboard. David's expression grew solemn and concentrated. He looked Brian dead in the eyes as he began to make. "Brian, it's never too late to start taking control of your life. Just remember that. Now let's show this guy that you aren't going to take this laying down." David grunted, and his stomach gave an audible rumble. It sounded like logs rolling down a hill. "What are you doing?" Brian said, exasperated. He couldn't believe this was happening. The experience was starting to sober him up a little. "Dude, turn around. This isn't going to be pretty." David didn't even need to push at this point. The burrito wanted out, and it didn't matter if it was in this floorboard or in his pants. It was going to get its way. Reaching up behind him, David grabbed the steering wheel for some stability. Almost falling in at first, as the wheel turned freely, he regained enough composure to carry out his task. David's eyes rolled in relief as he blocked out the near-empty ketchup bottle sounds happening behind him. His legs shook under him as he supported his weight. Brian turned a shade of green as he quickly looked away from the wet slapping sounds happening somewhere inside the darkness of the driver's side door. It was enough to make the vomit rise to the top of his throat, a sweet, acidy taste that he had to choke back. Brian walked around the front of the car so he didn't have to watch. A few minutes later, it was finally over, and Brian was face to face with his friend again. "Dude, that's disgusting." Brian choked on his own words. "Yeah, that's going to be horrible by tomorrow with the door closed all night and morning," David agreed. "No, I mean you. Did you wipe up or anything? I know you couldn't have found a sink in there to wash your hands." Brian held back the burrito that had risen to the top of his throat and tried not to fall over in the street. "Dude, it's cool. I used my sock." David lifted a pant leg and revealed that he was no longer wearing his left sock and shoe. "Oh my God, that's the worst thing in ever." The two friends began to laugh together for the first time in hours. David leaned against the BMW to put his shoe back on, but suddenly started to lose his balance. At first, he thought that maybe he was falling of his own volition and drunkenness. But when he looked up, saw the horror in Brian's expression, he knew it was something more. As he regained his balance, he turned to look at the BMW, which suddenly seemed to be getting smaller and smaller with each passing second. At first, David thought it was strange. Then he realized that the car was rolling away from him down the hill they had spent all night climbing. "Dude, what the hell?" Brian gasped in horror as he watched the Beamer build up speed. "Fuck, I must have released the emergency brake," David cried. "What do we do?" "Fucking grab it!" David lurched forward. All he could think was, why did BMW make those mechanisms so easy to disengage?